Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about XY mapping
Yep, which is latitude and longitude coordinates mapping.
because not everything has an address.
Yes. If it
I
doesn't have,
was,
yeah, if it doesn't have an address, you want that latitude, longitude. If it doesn't have that,
yeah,
you
like Bonnie and
have
I were just talking about a project that I'm working on for a local land conservancy to curate their historic uh, past. That's redundant, but anyway, so I may be redundant, but at least I don't repeat myself. Um, so, like on their site, um, they have old areas that were part of Native American site. They had a Japanese resort from the 1930s. There is a house or the remains of a house from the mid 1800s that was part of the Rancho era. Anyway, and none of these things have addresses, but they all have coordinates. So,
yep. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, I am sharing my screen, Zoom. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay, so here's your table of contents. You're well familiar with all the layers and the base maps. So I went to add data and I added in a standalone table. And so this is where it shows up on the very bottom. And it's got a little table icon next to it. So you can tell that that's what it is. Um, yeah, so that would be CSV data, DVF data, Excel data, whatever. So let's open it and take a look. All right. So this is actually a UNESCO site because I wanted to know where UNESCO sites were, and Google Maps is terrible. So I came in here and I was like, oh, no, no. Oh, there it is. That's what I want. Element LO, which is longitude, and element ALA, which is latitude. And I can tell that by looking at it, they usually go side by side. Sometimes they're called XY, sometimes they're called latitude, longitude. This one is a little less obvious, but you can usually tell by looking at them, and you have some negative values, some positive values. Anyway, so I'm coming in here because I'm gonna run the mapping thing, but I need to know which fields because the wizard thing is gonna ask me which fields is the latitude, which field is the longitude. So, okay, now I know. So I can close that guy up. And then I can right click on it and do create points from table, which is exactly what I want to do. It gives two options. I'm going to show you both of them. XY table to point makes a feature layer. So it'll make a layer in your geodatabase or a shapefile or whatever you want it to be that lives on its own. When we do the make XY event layer, it makes a layer that only lives here in the APRX. So in your project file, you can export it to its own feature layer, but um, it does not do that.
so
And
if you, it would seem like then that latter choice is only good if it's something you want to use just right here.
yeah, honestly, it's a historic artifact. That used to be the only way you could do XY data was doing an event layer. So now they have this tool that makes an actual layer, which is great. So I'm not really sure if they need to keep this or if it's just a historic and people will freak out if it goes away. I don't know. So anyway, we're going to do this one because I know I like it. So it's giving, so I ran it already. So it's already over here. So it's giving me a little like, hey, that layer already exists. So I'm going to just slap a 2 on there and we should be good to go. Then because I ran it already, it does have these. So the longitude is X and the latitude is Y. So I filled those in. Z is for if you have any altitude data, but we don't. So I'm going to say, okay. And I forgot to see how many this is, but it's kind of a lot and it runs pretty fast. And bam, there you go,
Wow.
all over the world. Yeah, so I ran this because I like to travel and I like to know if there's a UNESCO site where I'm going. And like I said, Google Maps gives you UNESCO field offices, not UNESCO sites. So I said, ha, I know how I can do that. I can use GIS. So,
Who needs Google when you have Bonnie?
right. And so you've got uh, all the attributes in here. One of the attributes that,
Well,
oh yeah,
and note there, it's this is over 6,000 records. I mean, that was really fast.
it was really fast. So it says the name. It says it probably in the native language, and then it's got which country it is. So that's really nice. So I can do like I can select a country and go, yeah, I want that, um, and check it out. But let's
Actually, it looks like all of the names are in French, but whatever.
perhaps that's where UNESCO is based or something.
Maybe it's because they know I speak French.
Oh, that's the
So they
berry
did it
field.
just for me. That was very nice of them.
I gotcha. That's the berry field. So now we've got these points, and they gonna get a pop up here. Let's see what this guy is. Honestly, it took longer to run the XY to point
Yeah.
than it is for this pop up. Anyway, um, yeah, so it's got all the information. Oh, okay, it's in Suriname. That's great. Historic, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's got descriptions. Very nice. When was it added? In 2002. Very cool. Now, if I'm when I make a web map of this, I will make sure that not all of this stuff shows up in my pop-up, but this is just giving us everything.
Will it
So
still be in French?
no, I will not show the French part.
Oh, golly.
So then I will show you that I also did an event layer because we don't really need to make it do that again. I'm going to bring that down underneath so you can see the event layer on top. So it's exactly the same. It just doesn't have, in fact, let's just play with this and see if we can see what the source is. This one, source. Eh, okay. It knows where this APRX lives. So if you happen to do it this way, you can then um, export features and save it all out, but we don't need to do that. So honestly, that's probably the shortest video you're ever going to have from us.
And
Because
what other kinds of things are they going to find that they might need this for?
a big one is crime data.
Oh,
Crime data almost always has XY. They're really good about putting in the XY. Sometimes you get an address. Sometimes the addresses aren't very consistent and they're not very geocode friendly.
mm.
So yeah, crime data for sure. Um, yeah, I would guess most things like this that are worldwide would have an XY. Um, Anything that's captured by like a GPS or a field map, something like that, like our trees. We have our trees mapped at the city and they all have an XY because some of them are in the median or you
Yeah.
know wherever they are in a park somewhere, and so an address doesn't really help. The XY really does. So that's the kind of thing. Yeah, and honestly, you never know what data you're going to get that either doesn't have addresses or doesn't have addresses that are very geocoder friendly. So,
Which that's one thing to remember is you don't have to put an address on everything. So I think this is a temptation that people do. They say, oh, we want to keep track of them, so let's give everything an address. And so we give it the nearest address that we can find. And so we used to have our street trees
Mhm.
handled that way. And so it was just desperately wrong when we actually mapped them out.
Yeah,
And, you found clusters of them together here because there's some long industrial stretches where there's clearly no address. And so they would just try to divide it up as best they could. I don't blame the people for trying. At the time,
yeah,
it was fine because it was what they had, but um, it was not usable. And then it turned out actually that some trees were counted multiple times,
yeah.
and we were paying an amount per tree for maintenance.
Oh,
And since trees were being counted more than once, we were paying for them more than once. So
yeah,
anyway,
that's no bueno.
yeah,
One other thing I need to mention is that sometimes you will get a layer that has coordinate data, but it doesn't have them all filled in. So if they are blank, the X, Y to point, we'll take that as a 0, 0 coordinate, and it will end up somewhere out in the ocean somewhere. So if you end up with a bunch of those, see how many those are. If it's enough that it makes your data not even worthwhile, then there's that.
yeah.
If it's just a few, I would suggest deleting those out of your data set.
Or place them. Once you've
Place.
created it, then you
Yeah,
could add them. That'd be pretty easy in
yeah,
editing.
yeah. You could edit the layer, but yeah, just watch out if they. Oh, I've got all this stuff in the ocean. I know it's not in the ocean. That's what's happening. So this one, I know there are a bunch of things on islands, so
Yeah.
they're
Now you have me
supposed to
wanting to
be.
play with that data. Like, ooh, what is that stretch of islands out there?
You
But
know,
anyway, we'll
yeah,
play with that another day.
yep. Oh
So
well,
thank you. That's it.
thanks
And
for joining
now
us.
you know X and Y mapping.
Woohoo!